Hello, hello, hello. I wanted to make an Easter video. There are so many thoughts that are going through my mind. And I was just ranting to the computer for a while because I needed to rant it out. So, but I want to continue to rant now in this video about all of this because there are so many things that are a problem in the world. Okay, so obviously the problems are mounting up, and I am absolutely terrified of men. Okay, and that's a fact. And because of that, I'm absolutely terrified of being murdered. And I have the feeling that's gonna be coming up, okay? I have the feeling that's gonna happen at some point, and I'm really terrified of it. Because it's people like me who are constantly being murdered. That's a fact, okay? Constantly. And I watch the crime reports and I feel eerily drawn to these crime reports. And when I see a particular face of a woman, I feel drawn to it. I feel like she wants to tell me something, and I feel obligated to listen to this dead person. Okay. And I had to pass many of them up because I said to them, I can't. It's too much. But then, and I took a break from the 48-hour crime reports for a couple of months, for like half a year or so. And then I see one again, and there's a specific face that stares at me and says, please watch this report. It might save your life, it might save other people's lives. I have something to say to you. I have a message. And then I have to do it. I have to watch this, and I have to see what's going on. But these stories, the absolute vast majority of these crime reports are about a dead woman between the age of 16 and 30. That's the vast majority. And guess what? She is not only beautiful, pretty, attractive, sexy, innocent, naive. Okay, I'm not victim blaming, just it's a fact. Okay, they're naive because. And I used to be naive too. I'm very lucky that I didn't get murdered when I was naive. So I'm not showing you. I'm showing away from you. I'm not showing you. So I'm not showing you. So I'm working on another real gorgeous art project over there. Here's the baby dog. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dog. Yes, it's a beautiful dog, is that? So, I used to be naive, and I used to be naive in Germany when I was young. Okay? Lots of horrible things could have happened. There were many times where something really bad could have happened. And I know the blue god protected me. I know for sure. But these girls, in the United States particularly, that have fallen prey to a jealous boyfriend, or incels that have boiled up rage against women. Those girls, they were not that lucky. Okay. One red-headed girl was buried alive in a park by her boyfriend and his best friend, his roommate and her best friend's boyfriend. And these two men, they hated her. They have been plotting this for years. The one guy hated her because she wasn't interested in him, and her boyfriend hated her because he thought she was cheating on him. And there are so many men that think a woman cheating on them is the worst crime there is. It's like a capital crime to them. A woman cheating on them. In Islam, it takes it another step further. If a woman even looks at another man, just to say hi, or they're not even allowed to shake hands, just to be polite, right? To acknowledge someone is there, just to look at someone and nod or say hello. That's not even allowed. That's already viewed as a capital crime. So the human species is pathological, to say the least. Okay. There are exceptions, but I think the majority of people are pretty messed up in one way or another. I'm not saying the majority of people are psychopaths, obviously not. Then if that was the case, then there wouldn't be any more safety. I mean, if that was the case, then you couldn't even leave your house at all anymore. So, but they have done psychological tests at Berkeley and Stanford universities, okay, and other universities. They have done some real substantial human trials with people, unethical tests that are against the law now. But at that time in the 70s, all kinds of things were legal with LSD, and they tested everything like crazy. They also tested on themselves, they tested on others and on volunteers, and it was insane. The kind of stuff they have done also to animals and children in during the behavioristic era, Watson and Skinner and those type of people. It's an atrocity what happened. But anyway, they did tests on college students. And here they took college students, That's already a demographic of people that are normally more civilized in their behavior in general. And they took those as test people. I've done my test person time 2 times over at the universities for psychology. But then I broke off with the studies because it was gonna be involving phases where, in order to get in the direction of neuroscience, they would have to do tests on animals, and they had to do these practical phases of half a year or a year. And I said, there's no way I can ever participate in something like this. So I had to drop the whole thing. And it doesn't matter, I'll drop anything in an instant if something requires from me to do tests on animals or on anyone. There's no way I could ever do it. It wouldn't matter what kind of credentials I would lose from this, or money or diplomas. That doesn't matter. Okay, what matters in life is that we live our lives according to ethics, according to love, and according to compassion, and nothing else. Absolutely nothing else. So I want to dedicate this video here to Jesus, because it is Eastern and I want to take Jesus Christ off his Christ cross. And I think it is about time that this should be done. Okay, Jesus Christ needs to be taken off the cross once and for all. Okay, and his wounds need to be healed. Okay, if you have a Jesus Christ sculpture somewhere in your church or hanging over your bed, so you have if you're Catholic, you have a bleeding Jesus hanging over your bed. That is probably not the best of all energy radiances in your house, right? So if you want good chi or prana, or good energy vibration in your house, and particularly in your bedroom, take Jesus off the wall and off the cross. Take this whole thing off the wall, then take a screwdriver and take this wooden Jesus off that cross. Okay, and then I want you to cut the cross up in pieces and make something else with it. You can use it as some kind of tray to put your mug on, or whatever, different things, right? That you can make little art pieces out of it. Then you need to take some kind of, you need to buy clay, and you need to patch up the wounds in his hands and feet and chest. Right? Patch all of that up, and then you also need to take some plaster of Paris, and you smooth out the forehead from the thorn wounds. Okay, so you fix all of that. Okay, and then once that's dried, you take paint, and then you paint over it, and you make the skin well everywhere. Nice. I don't know what skin color he had. I'm guessing like cardboard. You take that color and you paint over it, and then you have Jesus resurrected for Eastern. Okay, and he will say, thank you, Philip, he will say, and you will get a heart attack then when that happens. But no, he's not gonna say that. So, and I recommend that to everyone to do this worldwide. Okay, also the real big Jesuses that are on crosses, it needs to be dismantled. All of that, the cross needs to be removed. We had a chance one time to buy an old church We had our chance. I feel really bad about it. This place was creepy as hell. And I didn't feel really very comfortable about it. I thought, how can I sleep in that place at night? That's gonna be spooky. There are gonna be so many ghosts in there. How do I deal with all of this? We were gonna have to start with the therapy help center for ghosts. Oh my goodness, I would have to go through there with incense of sage and Christmas tree bundles that are smoking, and through the entire place, through every single room, every single baptism room. I don't know what the hell they did in those rooms, but no, it was just at that time I was not ready for it. So that was a long time ago, but we had the chance to buy an old church for $80,000. 80,000, man. So you can't go wrong with that. A huge building, Of course, it had the torture instrument stuck on the top of the roof, So that would have been the very first thing to go up there on your scaffolding tower, okay, and take a chainsaw and chop that thing off, okay. This miserable cross. And I'll get into it. I will explain more in detail how 48-hour crime reports fit in with this subject. Because humans have been brainwashed to the core, okay? And that's a fact. You have been brainwashed. You have been brainwashed to think good is bad and bad is good. And that's all there is to it. To just sum it up in one sentence, basically. That's what they have done to your brain. And it's shocking to see it, and then to see it unfold over and over and over in all kinds of ways, right? With Islam, good is bad and bad is good. With incel community, with good is bad and badass is good, right? No, it's not. But anyway, so, and then we see it with the Democratic Party. They're telling you good is bad, bad is good. So I see it unfolding all over the place. And then I'm shocked. I'm just sad and shocked to see how easily people can be so manipulated. I mean, to such 180 degrees. How is that possible even? I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't follow with this. I just can't follow. There's no way. I cannot possibly wrap my head around it. I come from a liberal background, but they can't turn my liberalism into something opposite extreme and then tell me this is now liberalism. No, they just doesn't work that way for me. Oh man. But then I also had to I had to question a lot of these things that even we were told in the 80s. Okay? I think about that very, very much in depth. Some of these things, like anti-Americanism and some, which we were drilled with in school in Germany. And if it wasn't for Dr. Arthur Janoff in LA, I would have never gone to the United States in my adult life. We went to Connecticut when I was 15, my family and I. We lived in a friend's house for a month. And these people were super, super nice. So, and I saw an elk. Okay, I was shocked. I thought I'm transported back into a prehistoric time. because we don't have elk in Germany. So I was absolutely shocked to see an elk in Connecticut. And I don't even think there are any more elks now in Connecticut. Maybe in Yellowstone and Alaska. So but there were some things that we were told back in the 80s even, that I had to question very, very thoroughly as well. But what they did with the Democratic Party, they turned everything into opposites and into crime. They were telling people crime is good, and then people went out on the street and protested against those that are against crime. Okay, so that doesn't make sense to me. Okay, it will never make sense. So, but anyway, take that friggin' Jesus off the cross, cut the cross apart, fix the wounds of that sculpture, okay? And then make another sculpture out of clay and that looks like that, and then make him sit somewhere on a couch and have a good time. Sit somewhere on a couch with the dog in his arms. Okay, so that's a much better image. That's the better image to show the world. Yes, that is a much better image. A dog in bed on the couch with people together. Yeah, I wanna. What are you doing now? What is the baby dog doing? What was that about now? What are you gonna do? You're going outside? Is that what it is? You have to go outside? Get overheated? Is that what it is? Is it getting warm in here? Yeah, you have to have a curtain like this where the dog or the cat can go through at all times. Okay, it's very important, but at the same time retain the heat. So, yeah, this is probably a little bit more comfortable. Here's the disco light, it's very nice. It's a little bit more comfortable, like this here. So, I would never, ever, and ever, not even for any reason, I would never for anyone and for anything paint or sculpt a Jesus on a cross with a bleeding forehead and wounds and all of that. Could never do that. Cannot possibly. I could never be a restorator in a church where I've met a woman in my psychology classes at the university. She was a church restorator before she signed up for psychology, and they were constantly repairing whatever. They were repairing the wound, making the wounds. If the wound faded away, they sure had to take more of blood red and pus color to refresh those wounds on the bleeding Jesus. No, I could never do something like this ever in a million years and into eternity. Could never do this. It just doesn't feel right. It feels wrong to do this. Why are people so easily brainwashed into thinking good is bad and bad is good? I want people to ask themselves this question, okay? This question needs to be asked, obviously. I ate too much junk food recently, okay? But today, for Easter, I made Eastern cookies. they they ended up to be as big, each cookie was as big as my computer. I'm not exaggerating. Even as thick as this shockproof computer. That is how big. Two big cookies as big as this. How big is this? 15-inch military grade specified computer, shock resistant, all of that. Really thick and really, really large. Two cookies. And I put these German, it's like a for cookie making German rice paper plates on there on the forms, and then I made the cookie dough, healthy cookie dough, whole wheat flour, organic, 100%, and I made my own plant milk in the blender with a few daisies, with some petals of rhododendron petals, red rhododendron petals, some ivy, oat, crushed flax seeds, water, and a whole lot of brown sugar. I blended that into my own self-made plant milk. I poured that into the flour. I mixed it up. It was very, very gluey. Okay, gluten. I mixed it up with my hand. I kneaded it, and then I tried to form an Easter bunny. That was impossible because it was too amorphously. It was kind of like those putties, those gel putties that flow out of your hand. So I just decided, what the heck? I'm just gonna cover the whole trays, 2 trays with this gooey stuff. And then I put it in the oven. I didn't even know exactly for how long, but we just guessed on that. And we pulled it out, and it was exactly like Paul predicted it. The outer layer was rock hard. On the inside, it was still raw. But I like it. It tastes really good, and it tastes healthy, and it's yummy. It's really good. So better than that cardboard Easter bunny cookie from Safeway. Definitely better than, white sugar and white flour and all of that. And there's nothing nutritious in it. So my cookie stuff is nutritious, and so the baby dog was crazy over it. He even jumped up and down and backwards and forward and sideways. He wanted that so much. So once it cooled off, we were able to pry that apart from the enamel pans, and then we broke them up into pieces. We put it into a bread bag, and then I tied it up with a clip, and I put it in the refrigerator. So now we can eat this, and we're going on a vacation pretty soon. We're going to bring that on the vacation. That's the perfect vacation snack in between. We don't have to go anywhere and buy unhealthy cookie dough or white bread dough or whatever. So that's much better. So that's very nice. And then I started on an Easter bunny sculpture, an abstract Easter bunny sculpture. I will show that when it's finished. So it's really, really nice. It's sitting there on that desk. I started that, and I'm making this out of a out of a paper towel roll, and I found just the right cardboard container that I attached to the paper towel roll, and that is now the face of the bunny. The head of this, it's like a milk carton shape head. I'll show it when it's done. And I pasted it all together with masking tape, looks really good, and I'm painting it now with acrylic colors. And then I will stick it on top of that candle holder, that old-fashioned candle holder from 1930. And that lamp doesn't work anymore. The electric wiring quit on that one. And then I'm going to stick that on that, and that's going to be awesome. It's going to be very, very ornamental. So, and I made the baby dog an Easter bunny dog collar out of some weird cat harness that Paul bought a long time ago. And so that looks pretty neat. I have 2 of those that I made, one in red and one in turquoise. And I have a grounding pillow here now that works very well. I fall asleep very fast with this, and I sleep for 12 hours. It's really, really nice. So, but anyway, chaotic videos. Oh my god. So, but I'm not competing with anyone, and I'm not making anything like a job application or some kind of serious political meeting or something. It's just a fun video with my baby dog. Yes. Oh, yes. Very nice. Oh, that is so good, baby. That is good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have to always make sure to cover the baby dog. Cover your baby dogs with the sleeping bag or a blanket. Yes, it's so good. Yes, see? And they like it like this. That feels so good to be on a very soft bed with a sleeping bag over them. Particularly the Staffordshire. They have velvet hair, and they don't have an undercoat. They have real fine velvet short hair that's like a millimeter long, and they get cold, so they have to be covered. This is very, very important. So now I have to hold it in my hand again because I can't put it here unless I move this forward here. I don't know, maybe like this here. Might do it like this. I don't know. So yeah, it's in chicken. So I can set this up here in the corner without encroaching on the baby dog like this here. So that way I don't have to hold the computer up. It's just too much trouble to hold the computer up. But anyway, this is an important subject. And the reason why I'm talking about Jesus on the cross is because as long as people are worshipping a tradition of someone hanging on a torture instrument, how can they ever start thinking for themselves and start thinking outside of the box and start thinking in terms of ethics and kindness? As long as they follow a religion that portrays a person brutally murdered on a cross, and they put the symbol of the cross onto pendants and ornaments and paintings and window Tiffany ornaments, and I've seen it all. And I mean, as long as you have this kind of symbolism in your buildings, how can you expect that now you're thinking outside of that box? Now you're thinking in terms of kindness and love and ethics. As long as you follow the Vatican and the Pope and this Catholic horrific ideology, or any Christian ideology, or Abrahamic ideology, or Bible, Old Testament, and also anything in the Bible, right? How can you expect that you suddenly think outside of the box, okay? But Hollywood and the corporate agenda and the string holders, they want people to think inside of the box. They want people to be brainwashed and to adhere to this. This goes on for thousands of years. Thousands and thousands of years. So very difficult for people to start thinking outside of the box, okay? When I was a baby, a toddler, my mother took me to some kind of church event because her sister is a Christian, and my parents stopped going to the church before I was born. So a few years before I was born, they decided this is bullshit. We're not going there anymore anyway. We're not paying them money anymore, and we were signing out. Okay, they were both atheist agnostics, my parents, but my aunt was always a Christian, and if she's still alive, I hope she is, then she's still Christian. Okay, so a nice woman, she's very nice, but religious, and I wonder if she ever questioned that religion and that dogmatization. In Germany, they are not as dogmatic, the Christian churches. So I've seen that they even allow modern art exhibits in their churches, so which is pretty good. No, that's pretty progressive. Okay, that's forward movement. Okay, so now that's awesome. So here in the United States, they would never do this. They're very, very regressive. They're very conservative and very dogmatic, much more dogmatic than in Europe. Even the Vatican has some people in there that are more progressive. So, because it's Italy, and Italy is the mecca of fashion and modern art, really, and design and all of that. So that leaps over into the Vatican as well, which is in the heart of Italy. But it has its own legislation, I heard. So it's like it's a town, but like a country almost, within a country. But it's really the mecca of the cabal. That's what it is. It's really that's the throne of the cabal. That's what the Vatican is. And they can do anything they want, and they have their dirty hands into world politics. They really do. Yes, the baby dog. What is going on? Are you overheated again? I better take this off. Yeah, I don't want baby dog being overheated. Chicken. Yes, that's good. So as long as people have any of these things in their lives, a bleeding Jesus on a cross or a pendant around their chest of a torture instrument, or the guillotine as a pendant around your neck, as long as you have something like this and you think good is bad and bad is good, then how can you ever think outside of the box, right? I mean, it's impossible to do that. What is going on now? What is going on? Huh? What is this now? Here, I can put this on. Is this better? Here, this. The baby blanket. Yeah, the baby blanket's better. Okay. Alright, so this is better. Okay. Yes. Yes, and you can. Oh, yes. You can. A little overheated. Yes. Okay. Alright. So, dog always comes first. Okay, that's because dog is God, and that's the truth. It's very important that people understand that. In dog, we trust. Can we trust in Yahweh? Well, Yahweh is most likely not alive anymore. He probably died from old age at some point, even though he was from another galaxy. Okay. Yes, you guessed it right. Yahweh was an ET, an extraterrestrial that came to planet Earth, colonized, took humans as slaves, gene spliced them, made them smarter to have smarter slaves, and to make them more into his own image. Ta 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 ta. So, which galaxy did he come from? Not the Pleiades. Okay, so Yahweh, I don't know where that happened on Earth, but it probably happened in the Middle East a long time ago. Okay, and that's where the Abrahamic religions come from. Those are all rudiments and atavisms from an era of ET colonization in the Middle East. And those ETs that came there was their spaceship. Yahweh was their astronaut boss. They obviously must have looked Middle Eastern. That's all I can say so far. I'm guessing on this, but it must have gone approximately like that. Okay. That's what I think. And that Yahweh was a jealous God, self-proclaimed, self-coronated God, right? God over humans, because he was smarter than humans, so he said he felt entitled to coronate himself into God-likeness. God, like another word for king, okay, basically, emperor. And the people worshipped him because they felt like they were under his mercy. That he was bringing some good things to them, and they were willing to give their labor and all kinds of things. So, and then that's what a cult is. That's how a cult starts, right? That's how a religion gets started. With someone who with some guru who thinks he knows better than everyone else. And other people follow, whether that's justified or not justified, as long as the other people think this person must know it all, and we better listen hook, line, and sinker to whatever he has to say and do whatever he wants us to do. And that's not free thinking. That's not thinking outside of the box. So, but the people at that time particularly, they were not on the level very much. certainly not on that intellectual level of Yahweh and his fellow astronauts. And so they worshipped him. And then Yahweh said, don't follow any other god. There are some other ETs from other galaxies that have come to Earth and in another place on Earth. And if you ever see those, don't worship those, because I'm a jealous God. That is not the idea of equanimity and samadhi. Okay. That is not what Gautama Buddha had in mind. Okay. A jealous God, an ego God. Okay. Jealous equal ego. That is what it is. Okay. And so we need to question that. We need to question someone who says, you cannot like anyone other than me, and you cannot be worshipping another guru, only me, right? That is dualistic, that is hierarchy, that is enslavement, that's indoctrination, that's making people dependent and enslaved and unfree. And that's also how many men are with women. Okay, so, and that's how all of this ties in with one another. So obviously Jesus came a couple of thousands of years later after that spaceship landed there in the Middle East. So, and then who was Jesus? From what I have heard, Jesus was a free thinker, an open-minded person who questioned things, and who said, I want to learn, I want to go out to India and I want to learn as much as I can. Okay, he learned from Buddhist monks, and he studied rigorously. Then he came back to Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem, what he learned in India was totally out of this world. And they thought that is so revolutionary. What he was saying, what he was bringing there from India, from the Buddhist monks, that was so revolutionary for the people in Jerusalem that they either loved him or they hated. Okay. Yeah, and particularly the emperors at that time, the Roman emperors, they were just like that Yahweh, and they were jealous emperors like Yahweh, and they wanted everyone that was taking their followers away from them. They wanted to behead those. They wanted to get rid of the person that would take their followers away from them. Okay, and that's like that's been going on. The same theme has been going on with the human species for hundreds of thousands of years and millions of years. Okay, And then again, the human species consists of different beings. Okay. I'm very, very sure of this, that we carry parts in our DNA from Draconian, reptilian, from Yahweh himself, from Jesus, maybe some, just Jesus had children and they have multiplied and they were fruitful, and so a lot of people have DNA from Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Okay, who knows who all, the Medicis probably have stuff from them, and I would not be surprised if they do. And then we also have Pleiadians, and we have other ETs. We have good ETs. We have jealous ETs. We have all kinds. There's all kinds of stuff that has happened in the past. Okay, millions of years back even, and beings that were evolved long before the human lineage. And they were disasters, so-called deluges. They were entire civilizations were wiped out because of environmental catastrophes caused by commerce of greedy beings, of greedy humanoids. Okay, so Helena Petrovna talks about this also in her books, that there were like 3 other root races before us that ended up to be bipedal humanoids that come from different lineages, completely different lineages. Very interesting, all of this. My gosh, my goodness. This is so fascinating to see what else archaeologists will dig up and find, and through the melting, which is definitely tragic that the polar regions are melting, because it causes such horrific climate changes and floods. Very, very, very sad. But on the other hand, stuff is going to be coming to the surface because of ice blocks melting. And then we will suddenly find archaic architecture and artifacts and sculptures that people never thought were there. Okay, it's all gonna come to the surface now. All of this is gonna come to the surface gradually. So it's very fascinating to see this. Our history on Earth is so multifaceted and rich and astonishing, more astonishing than any fairy tale in any fairy tale book. Okay, so I see that, and it's just fascinating. And there's so much to learn from all of that. Also for our own personal development, for our own personal evolution, for our own mental path of growing and learning and healing and expanding. Okay, so that we don't make the same mistakes again that our prehistoric ancestors have made. Okay, whether they are on our lineage or on other lineages. They could be cousin lineages, far, far distant lineages that were our common ancestor may have been a snail or something like this. I mean, that far back. Then there were parallel evolutionary evolution's happening, and evolutionary lineages that grew out, okay, one more evolved than the other. And whatever was the most evolved at the time, with intelligence and with creating their own industries and so on, they were then the ones that have made terrible mistakes, and they have exterminated themselves. So with floods and with disasters and with gene experimentation and so on, and then there were also ETs that visited here and there, and that did Garden Eden gene splicing projects. Many times this has happened. So it's just fascinating. So in the past I would have dismissed all of that as just people fantasizing. People like to fantasize about things, but the more I learn, the more I realize this is not fantasy. Okay, this is absolutely revolutionary history that has been obscured from us, from our view, and even deliberately obscured from our view for so many years. And then we ask the question, why did they obscure it? What did they gain from obscuring it? There's another ant on the screen. So, is there maybe there's another root race that is still there, parallel, living next to us, and we don't even know. Maybe the string holders are related to them, and have a lot of their DNA, right? Much more, higher percentage of the draconian DNA than the other people have. And that's why they are the string holders, and they are functioning from an underworld, from the underground, from an underground cave system, or from behind the scenes, whether underground or overground, or underwater in underwater space stations, or whatever, wherever they could set up remote, distant, backstage offices and hidden facilities, like at Antarctica, for example. I'm sure there are a lot of those. There are a lot of those backstage communities and stringholder facilities where all kinds of stuff is happening that the majority of the regular people have no idea about, that this is happening. But there are whistleblowers that are coming forward with information now, more and more, and that information is shocking and heartbreaking. What these people are doing and what kind of wealth they have accumulated. They have accumulated wealth that we can't even wrap our minds around it. They are string holders. They are the string holders of politicians. Politicians are their puppets because they have that much money to manipulate people with, okay, to bait people with and bribe people with. It's unbelievable, and this whole thing is all coming up now. It's all gradually being dissolved and coming up into public view. So one thing after another is gonna be disclosed and coming up, and it's being discovered as we are speaking. It's being discovered on a daily basis. There are people out there investigating. And that's not the only thing that will move us forward. The most important thing that will move us forward is, again, heal, go on the healing path. Those jealous boyfriends, and these angry incels that are murdering girls because they can't have them, or because they feel like they are not in control, they're not in charge, they feel like the girl is cheating or something, making that into some kind of crime. The human is not necessarily a monogamous animal, okay? The men are cheating too, and much worse than the women are. And at the same time, they want to do double standard, and they want to control the woman, and they want the woman to be their slave. That's basically what it is. And if the woman says, no, I'm not going to be your slave. I have multiple boyfriends too, so you can have multiple girlfriends, but I have the same rights. Okay, then the man freaks out and feels insecure and gets furious and feels entitled and feels like, because physically he can overpower a woman, so he feels entitled to that right to do it. It's horrific. The same with Yahweh, the same with any guru that thinks they can enslave others. Any cult person who thinks they can enslave other people and make them into their followers. I saw another report on, there was this gay guy who was a fundamentalist Christian, and he was struggling with his sexual orientation. He didn't come out of the closet. By the time they interviewed him, he had finally come out of the closet. And a lot of people are suspecting him of having murdered his wife. Real sad story, all of that. I think what it is she wanted to really have a consummated marriage. He was not the slightest bit interested in women. He didn't have sex with her. He didn't cuddle with her. He cuddled with the boys. And she was jealous, and it was making her insane, because she was so brainwashed and so devoted to this cult that this guy has created, and to him she worshipped this guy, and she thought questioning this was not even an option for her. And because she thought questioning him and everything was not an option, it made her crazy, because then she was betraying herself, and she was really betraying them and everyone else. And she betrayed her own mother and family. I'm not blaming her with a judge hammer. It's tragic. It's a case of severe mental illness. But because she put this religion and this gay man that married her only as a facade, he thought she could make him straight, which didn't happen. It couldn't happen with a man like him who he probably has completely female brain. That guy. That's what he looks like. That's what he talks like. Very narcissistic. Very mentally ill. And he wanted everyone to worship him. The boys and the girls as followers, and the boys as his boyfriends. And then he persuaded his boyfriend that he already had sexual relations with, and they kept it secret, but he persuaded the boyfriend to kill his wife. I think that's what happened. And the boyfriend, who was also completely devoted to him as a follower also, he would just never question it. So he saw that guy like a god, very dangerous. And then he just followed his orders. And then he turned himself in later on and said that he killed her. And then he changed the story a few times because he had a defense lawyer who talked him into reversing his statements and all of this real bizarre case, all of that. And then the guru guy, all of these people left the guru guy then after the girl was murdered, because it has to come to something like this before people finally ask some questions. And the guru guy got some haters now from the Christian church, and he changed his name and moved to another location. But I think he should also go into an insane asylum, for sure, at least, We need a prison reform, okay? I've worked on this now over the years. We need a complete detainment reform. We need a psychiatric reform. Prisons don't work. They make people more crazy. They make people more dangerous. Just because the prisons are overcrowded doesn't make it suddenly safe to release them back into the public. All of this is just extreme recklessness from the side of the politicians, like Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, he needs to go into an insane asylum, okay? For life, never be released. That guy is totally nuts. That guy is Meshuggah. Okay, that's what he is. Absolutely in bad shit insane. That's what that guy is. He doesn't have anything straightforward in his brain at all. That guy can't think clearly, and he's like a child. That's what it appears. And he's greedy and on the take, all of that. One of these smug liars, narcissistic and all of that, sociopath, totally. Never grew up. Very sad. saw these crime reports, the absolute vast majority of them are about, the vast majority is jealous and controlling husbands or boyfriends that murder their woman. And the woman is usually a kind-hearted, compassionate, innocent and naive, unknowing, very trusting person who also does not question things, who also is not paying attention to the dangers around her. Okay. I used to be like that myself. I was very lucky that my life had been saved so many times where it was very, very dangerous. So I feel like my mission in my life is to create a first therapy help center. This building in Brownwood, Texas, this old, real ancient administrative building or church building for $400,000. That's what I would get. If I had money now, if I had my own money, which I don't, if I had money, that's what I would do. And Paul, he'd be terrified of that, absolutely terrified. So Paul is quite controlling with me, and like an overprotective, over-controlling dad. But maybe I ended up in this situation because I felt like I couldn't manage my life. It was just, everything was just way too complicated and way too difficult to handle. So, but that's what I thought. Maybe that's not the reality, right? That's what I thought because of my own struggle with mental illness and the struggle with my parents and struggle with bipolar and depression and borderline and all of that. It was really difficult. Has been very, 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 very difficult. But I am healing, okay? I'm healing every day. It is a lifetime healing journey of healing, growing, learning, and expanding. And it will never end, okay? It will go on, even after we take off this earthian spacesuit. It will keep on going until we merge back into the infinite cosmos as not just one of the many pioneering souls, but as water into water. Okay. So, and that will happen eventually for every one of us. It just takes eons of lifetimes before we get there. But that's okay. This is also the infinite cosmos learning through every one of those filaments that we are. Okay. The souls that we are. These are individuated souls in order to have individuated learning experiences. If we hadn't broken off, then we couldn't have these individual learning experiences. And I always wonder what makes a soul come into this existence, like Madeleine and Bianca and that other girl, the red-headed girl, and so many other women and girls, and Madeleine was just 4 years old. What makes a soul come into this world to be brutally murdered or raped or tortured to death? What are they trying to learn from that? And my brain always goes into this, if I could have been there in Algarve, Portugal. I've been in Algarve, Portugal before. I've been there a long time ago when I was 12. That was in the 70s. So when Madeleine was abducted, I think that was in 2002. And that story went viral all over the world. They had posters, they had videos. The parents never gave up looking for her. The parents went through absolute hell from the authorities, from the police departments that blamed them, that slandered them, news broadcasters slandering them, blaming the parents. The pain and the grief, on top of more pain and grief, is unimaginable. And the mother said, when one of the officers told her that Madeleine may have very likely been abducted into human trafficking, where they torture little girls to death. When she heard that, she said, this information can break someone. This information can make someone completely break their minds, can completely become insane from that. When you are a compassionate mother and you hear something like this, it can make you insane. I would not have been able to live with this. I probably would have committed suicide. I don't know. I can't say it, but it would have. It would have definitely made me insane if I had experienced what this woman had experienced. Had her daughter taken away from her. She never saw her again. That's the worst nightmare for a compassionate mother. For a mother to have her baby torn away from her, like the cow mothers have their babies torn away from them, and they don't even know what happens to them. That's the worst thing there is. She's still waiting for her daughter to find her again. She kept her favorite plushed animal, a pink dinosaur. She kept on everywhere she went. She had this pink dinosaur in her arm, the mother. Everywhere she went, the courtroom, the police, interrogations and interviews, everywhere she went, she had this pink dinosaur in her arm. And they asked her why she always has this pink dinosaur in her arm. No matter where she was, in Portugal, in England. They're from England. They were on vacation in Portugal when that happened. and my brain goes into a frenzy, and then I go like, what are you doing now? My brain goes into this frenzy, and I start to daydream of what would I do if I was there? How can I stop this perpetrator? How can I rescue that little girl? How can I protect that little girl? That's what my brain does. Goes into this frenzy. So, but that doesn't do any good, obviously. But I can make videos about all of this and talk about it. And what I know for sure, I'm not showing you. But I know for sure what has to be done. Okay. What has to be done is we have to set up therapy help centers. We have to set up one center that is open, a community help center, that is open for everyone, where we do all kinds of things, particularly for children and teenagers to have something to go to feel safe, where we cook together, where we make cookies together, where we write essays together, where we paint, make artwork together, make sculptures, do sewing, all kinds of craft things to empower people, okay? And where we have a group therapy from 5 to 8 every single day, where people can go to, and as Arjanov always said, that was my teacher, Arjanov, as he always said, go out and do something, do regular things in your life, and make something, create something. And if you get triggered by people, don't act it out on them. Don't act anything out on others. Don't do anything against others. Take it into the group therapy and address it there. Whether the person that triggered you is there or not doesn't even make so much of a difference, okay? There could be another person that's there also, okay? Then you can directly talk to them. Not dump it, not act it out, but tell the person honestly how you feel. And if the person is not there, if someone else triggered you, if it was your mother or someone in a grocery store, or maybe memories of someone who's no longer alive, you can still take it to the group therapy and you can talk about it. It helps when there are other people. There were about 50 people or 60 people in primal therapy in every one of the group sessions that went on for about 3 hours in the evening. And it helps to have a bunch of people there, and everyone there is basically psychologically nude. Nobody is in a disguise. We're all disclosed, okay, psychologically. We're all in the open. Everyone has their package. Everyone knows everyone has their package. No one is judging anyone, okay? Everyone has compassion. Everyone has empathy for the other. Even people that are in bad shape and in a crisis, they still have compassion for the others, because that was the place that created that. Okay. Even people that were rather withdrawn or seemingly cold-hearted or disconnected from others, they felt safe there for the first time in their lives. I've done all kinds of things in my life before, all kinds of talking therapies and different therapies. I had so many therapists, I can't count it anymore. I started going to therapy at age 5. I'm not kidding, okay? And Annalise, she was great. She was super. And it was through her, that I found primal therapy and Arjanov. And she found Arjanov through the therapy she was doing with me. Because at age 5 or at age 6, it was towards the end of 5, I was almost 6 years old when I entered into her therapy. So it was in the beginning of 6. So that was even before I went to school. I was in her therapy, and I had these screaming fits where I would, like kids with autism, and I think that's exactly what these kids with autism are doing. They're having these screaming fits because of not just memory from this lifetime, and they haven't even been around for that long at age 6, but so they have memories from their trauma already, early trauma, but also from past lifetimes. They hadn't been closed off to the past lifetimes. And I think that's what's going on with those kids with autism. There's something in the brain that doesn't close that off as rigorously as most other people do, most other kids are doing. So they call those neurotypical, the ones that are completely closed off inside, right? And where they also don't see the other dimensions around them. But the ones with autism and Asperger's and just highly sensitive kids, as I was, they don't close that off very much. It's not closed. The door to perception is still open. And when we perceive that much, we see the whole thing, and as a child, this is overwhelming to see the toxic neurosis of adults, particularly of those adults that you feel to their mercy. You feel like you have to trust them. You have no other choice. And then you see that they are all messed up in the head. And then you don't know if you can trust them, or anyone, really. You don't even know what you're thinking at all. It's all happening at once. It's overwhelming. And that's real, real bad for a child to be in a world where they feel like there is no safe haven. There is no one to go to. I felt safe with my grandmother, but I was not there all the time. But Annalise made me feel safe, and because she made me feel safe, my body needed to purge this tension out. And I screamed, and she called her professor, and he said, "Those are primal screams." And so she read The Primal Scream by Arjanov, and she went there and she studied under him, and then I studied there as well. I went there when I was 26. So, and that time, that was the first time in my life where things started to actually make sense. Like a school, the first school in my life that actually made sense. And he wanted us to continue primal therapy. I don't know if any one of us has, but I feel very dedicated to that. And And he wanted us to not just blindly follow, but to work on this. Primal therapy itself was work in progress, okay? It's not a finished thing. The therapy approach itself is not a completed thing. It is something that will always be in progress, okay? And I have brought progress to it since then. So I saw the mistakes that were made, okay? I have witnessed all of this. Some people have died, including that guy Holmes, a porno star. This is really tragic, all of this. That was long before I went there. But then two other people died while I was in LA, and while I was still going there to the center. So that was after the training program had closed. So, but we were still there as clients. But the training program lasted for about 3 years. And I learned a lot. I learned a whole lot. And I have brought in my own experiences, and I have brought in a more multidisciplinary approach to it from other teachers as well. So it's very important to compute and to bring the different teachings that make sense, bring them together. Some people thought Tony Robbins was like the antidote to primal therapy, or people on both sides would think, oh, these are contradictory. No, they're not, actually. They're not contradictory. They're complementary. Tony Robbins is huge. He has helped a lot of people, okay? He has helped me a lot. He has brought another perspective to the whole thing. That was very, very vitally important for me, to not get caught up in some kind of cult-like attachment to primal therapy, to know and be aware that we have to bring many different approaches into it that are they're not contradictory. They are very supplemental towards each other. They work hand in hand, okay? Just as much as we need to eat healthy food, and we need to do grounding, like with this grounding pillow, and we need to go out in nature, and we need to form friendships. We also need to be careful, of course, so we don't get murdered. But all of this is important. When we form friendships, or back when I was still hanging out with my mother, if my mother had said, yeah, I will come with you to Geneva, let's go to Esther Odermatt, and we do primal therapy there together, and maybe even live there for a while and just go through, or go to LA, both of us, and go to the group therapy, both of us, and really put an effort into it, But no, instead she said, should I at 70 years old now go into therapy again? The therapy never ends. Annalise was in therapy until over 75 even. It never ends, okay? And it's our lifetimes are work in progress, okay? So we have to bring all of this together. And the most important thing is we have to be honest. As Thich Nhat Hanh has helped me a whole lot. Thich Nhat Hanh said it many times. The only way of communicating is radical honesty towards each other and towards ourselves, okay? That's a lifesaver. And so if we can implement these approaches, the Buddhist Vipassana, Arjana's primal therapy, Tony Robbins' reasonable approach of NLP and reason-based thinking, and also taking the courage to stand tall and embrace our own power, okay? If we can incorporate all of these beautifully together, then we have something that I call the inwardness meditation process, okay? And if we can implement that into community centers, one in each community worldwide, we can save the whole world. We can save the entire earth from destruction, from wars, and we can save teenagers from being murdered or committing suicide. That's the truth, okay? And the prisons have to be reformed into sanatoriums. Closed sanatoriums, but large compound sanatoriums that are protected and guarded by drones and robots, where we don't have to have a Berlin Wall or razor wire on top. That's not good for the animals and the birds. No, you can put a wall around it, but it could be 6 feet tall, but you can still climb over it if you want to, but the people inside of that compound, they will be monitored by drones and robots. So the drones and robots will not let them climb over that wall. They will bring them back and they will say, you're here for a reason, you're here to get therapy, you get treatment, you have committed a crime, okay? Now you have to do your time here, you have to do your dues. In El Salvador, they really have to do their dues there, and I think that's a fantastic prison, okay? The president of El Salvador is absolutely fantastic. I am amazed. I am infinitely grateful that this man is there. That's a young man and a new soul with an old soul, okay, with incredible courage and innovation and kindness. Someone who really cares is not gonna let those human traffickers get off the hook, okay? And so an approach like this is very good. So my sanatorium idea would be very much in tune with that. But I wouldn't have a prison in there where the violent criminals will go into, even if they want to, where they butcher each other up. No, I wouldn't have that. No, they would be guarded by drones and robots from hurting each other and from hurting themselves. So that's what we need this new technology for, that comes in as our helper for this next step, okay, for this reform. So the technology of AI and robots and drones is something that is here for us, not against us. It is here to help the world. Okay, so take care.